sighed Maisie, a lazy bird hatching an egg.
Well, I'm tired and bored. And I've kinks in my legs from just sitting here all day and work. How I hate it. I'd much rather play, take a vacation, fly out, or rest if I could find someone to stay on my nest. If I could find someone, I'd fly away free.
Then Horton the Elephant passed by her tree.
Hello.
Called the lazy bird, smiling her best.
You have nothing to do, and I do need a rest. Would you like to sit on the egg in my nest?
The elephant laughed.
Why are all the silly things? I haven't feathers, and I haven't wings. Me? On your egg? Why, that doesn't make sense. Your egg is so small, ma'am, and I'm so immense.
Answered Maisie.
Oh, that was a bird. Is that?
No, that's what she just said.
Card.
I know you're not small, but I'm sure you can do it. No trouble at all. Just sit on it softly. Come, be a good fellow. I know you wouldn't mind.
I can't.
Said the elephant.
Please.
Begged the bird.
It won't be very long, sir. I'll give you my word. I'll hurry right back. Why, I'll never be missed.
Very well.
Said the elephant.
Since you insist, you want a vacation, go fly off and take it. I'll sit on your egg, and I'll try not to break it. I'll stay and be faithful. I mean what I say.
Toodaloo.
Sang out Maisie and fluttered away.
The first thing to do,
Muttered Horton.
let's see. The first thing to do is prop up this tree and make it much stronger. That has to be done before I can get on it. I must weigh a ton.
Then carefully, tenderly, gently he crept up the trunk to the nest where the little egg slept. Then Horton the elephant smiled.
Now, that's that.
And he sat, and he sat, and he sat, and he sat. And he sat all the day, and he kept the egg warm. And he sat all the night through a terrible storm. It poured, and it lightened, it thundered, it rumbled.
This isn't much fun.
The poor elephant grumbled.
I wish she'd come back. Because I'm cold and I'm wet. I hope that Maisie bird doesn't forget.
But Maisie, by this time, was far beyond reach, enjoying the sunshine way up in Palm Beach, and having such fun, such a wonderful rest, decided she'd never go back to her nest. So Horton kept sitting there, day after day, and soon it was autumn, the leaves blew away. And then came the winter, the snow and the sleet, and icicles hung from his trunk and his feet. But Horton kept sitting and said with a sneeze,
I'll stay on this egg, and I won't let it freeze. I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful, 100%.
he sneezed. So poor Horton sat there the whole winter through. Then came the springtime with troubles anew. His friends gathered round and they shouted with glee. Look, Horton the elephant's up in a tree. They taunted, they teased him, they yelled. How absurd. Old Horton the elephant thinks he's a bird. They laughed and they all ran away. And Horton was lonely. He wanted to play. And he sat on the egg and continued to say,
I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful, 100%. No matter what happens, this egg must be tended.
But poor Horton's troubles were far, far from ended. But for while Horton sat there so faithful and so kind, 3 hunters came sneaking up softly behind. He heard the men's footsteps. He turned with a start. 3 rifles were aiming right straight at his heart. Did he run? He did not. Horton stayed on the nest. He held his head high, and he threw out his chest, and he looked at the hunters as much as to say,
Shoot if you must, but I won't run away. I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful, 100%.
But the men didn't shoot. Much to Horton's surprise, they dropped their 3 guns, and they stared with wide eyes. Look, they all shouted. Can such a thing be? An elephant sitting on top of a tree. It's strange, it's amazing, it's wonderful, new. Don't shoot him. We'll catch it. This is what we'll do. Let's take him alive. Why, he's terribly funny. We'll sell it back on the circus for money. And the first thing he knew, they had built a big wagon with ropes in the front for the pullers to drag on. They dug up his tree, and they put it inside with Horton so sad that he practically cried. We're off, the men shouted, and off they all went, with Horton unhappy 100%. Up out of the jungle, up into the sky, up over the mountains 10,000 feet high. And down the mountains and down to the sea, with the cart with the elephant, egg, nest, and tree. Then out of the wagon and onto a ship, out over the ocean, and oh, what a trip. Rolling and tossing and slashing with the spray, and Horton said day after day after day,
I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. But oh, I'm seasick 100%.
After bobbing around for 2 weeks like a cork, they landed at last in the town of New York. All ashore, the men shouted, and down with a lurch went Horton the Elephant still on his perch, tied onto a board that could just scarcely hold him. Bump, Horton landed, and then the men sold him. Sold to a circus, then week after week, they showed it to people at 10 cents a peek. They took him to Boston, to Kalamazoo, Chicago, Weehawken, and Washington too. To Dayton, Ohio, St. Paul, Minnesota, to Wichita, Kansas, to Drake, North Dakota, and everywhere thousands of folks flocked to see and laugh at the elephant up in a tree. Poor Horton grew sadder the farther he went, but he said as he sat in the hot, noisy tent,
I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful 100%.
Then, one day, the circus show happened to reach a town way down in the south, not so far from Palm Beach. And dawdling along way up high in the sky, who of all people should chance to fly by but that old good-for-nothing bird, runaway Maisie, still on vacation and still just as lazy, and spying the flags of the tents below. She sang out,
What fun! Why, I'll go to the show.
She swooped from the clouds through an open tent door.
Good gracious!
Gasped Maisie.
I've seen you before.
Poor Horton looked up with his face white as chalk. He started to speak, but before he could talk, there rang out the noisiest, ear-splitting squeaks from the egg that he'd sat on for 51 weeks. A thumping, a bumping, a wild, alive scratching.
My egg!
Shouted Horton.
My egg! Look, it's hatching!
But it's mine.
Screamed the bird when she heard the egg crack. The work was all done. Now she wanted it back.
My egg.
She sputtered.
You stole it from me. Get off my nest and get out of my tree.
Poor Horton backed down with a sad, heavy heart. But at that very instant, the egg burst apart, and out of the pieces of red and white shell, from the egg that he'd sat on so long and so well, Horton the Elephant saw something whiz. It had ears and a tail and a trunk just like his. And the people came shouting, "What's all this about?" They looked and they stared with their eyes popping out. And they cheered and they cheered and they cheered more and more. They'd never seen anything like it before. My goodness, my gracious, they shouted. My word, it's something brand new. It's an elephant bird. And it should be like that. Because Horton was faithful. He sat and he sat. He meant what he said, and they said what he meant. And they sent him home happy 100%. On the 15th of May, in the jungle of Newell, in the heat of the day, in the cool of the pool, he was splashing, enjoying the jungle's great joys, when Horton the Elephant heard a small noise. So Horton stopped splashing. He looked toward the sound.
That's funny.
Thought Horton.
There's no one around.
Then he heard it again, just a very faint yelp, as if some tiny person were calling for help.
I'll help you.
Said Horton.
But who are you? Where?
He looked and he looked. He could see nothing there but a small speck of dust blowing past through the air,
I say,
murmured Horton.
I've never heard tell of a small speck of dust that is able to yell. So you know what I think? Why, I think that there's must be someone on top of that small speck of dust. Some sort of creature of very small size, too small to be seen by an elephant's eyes. Some poor little person who's shaking with fear that he'll blow off into the pool. He has no way to steer. I'll just have to save him because, after all, a person's a person, no matter how small.
So gently, and using the greatest of care, the elephant stretched his great chunk through the air, and he lifted the dust speck and carried it over and placed it down safe on a very soft clover.
Humph!
Humped the voice. It was the sour kangaroo, and the young kangaroo in her pouch said, "Hump too." Your water? Keep reading. I'm fine.
Is it the...
That's you. Why this is...
Oh, why that speck is as small as the head of a pin? Oh, a person on that? Why, there never has been.
Believe me,
said Horton.
I tell you sincerely, my ears are quite keen, and I heard him quite clearly. I know there's a person down there, and what's more, quite likely there's two, even three, even four. Quite likely a family of, for all that we know, a family with children just starting to grow. So please,
Horton said,
as a favor to me, try not to disturb them. Just please let them be.
Why, I think you're a fool.
laughed the sour kangaroo, and the young kangaroo in her pouch said, "Me too." You're the biggest blame fool in the jungle of Newell, and the kangaroos plunged in the cool of the pool.
What terrible splashing.
The elephant frowned.
I can't let my very small person get drowned. I've got to protect them. I'm bigger than they.
So he plucked up the clover and hustled away. Through the high jungle treetops, the news quickly spread. He talks to a dust speck. He's out of his head. Just look at him walk with that speck on that flower. And Horton walked worrying almost an hour.
Should I put the speck down?
Horton thought with alarm.
If I do, these small persons may come to great harm. I can't put it down, and I won't. After all, a person's a person, no matter how small.
Then Horton stopped walking. The speck voice is talking. His voice is so faint he could just barely hear it.
Speak up, please,
said Horton. He put his ear near it. "My friend," came the voice, "you're a very fine friend. You helped all us folks on this dust speck no end. You've saved all our houses, our ceilings and floors. You've saved all our churches and our grocery stores."
You mean
Horton gasped.
you have buildings there too?
"Oh yes," piped the voice, "we most certainly do." "I know," called the voice, "I'm too small to be seen, but I'm mayor of a town that is friendly and clean. Our buildings to you would seem terribly small, but to us who aren't big, they are wonderfully tall. My town is called Whoville, for I am a Who, and we Whos are thankful and grateful to you." And Horton called back to the mayor of the town.
You're safe now. Don't worry. I won't let you down.
But just as he spoke to the mayor of the speck, 3 big jungle monkeys climbed up Horton's neck. The Wickersham brothers came shouting, "What rot! This elephant's talking to whos who are not. There aren't any whos and they don't have a mayor. We're gonna stop all this nonsense, so there." They snatched Horton's clover. They carried it off to a black-bottomed eagle named Vladikoff, a mighty strong eagle, a very swift wing. And they said, "Will you kindly get rid of this thing?" And before the elephant even could speak, that eagle flew off with the flower in his beak. All that late afternoon and far into the night, the black-bottomed bird flapped his wings in fast flight, while Horton chased after with groans over stones that tattered his toenails and battered his bones, and begged,
Please don't harm all my little folks who have as much right to live as us bigger folks do.
But far, far beyond him, that eagle kept flapping, and over his shoulder called back, "Quit your yapping, I'll fly the night through. I'm a bird, I don't mind it, and I'll hide this tomorrow where you'll never find it." And at 6:56, the next morning, he did it. Sure was a terrible place that he hid it. He let that small clover drop somewhere inside of a great patch of clovers 100 miles wide. "Find that," sneered the bird, "but I think you will fail." and he leapt with a flip of his black-bottomed tail.
I'll find it.
Cried Horton.
I'll find it or bust. I shall find my friends on my small speck of dust.
And clover by clover by clover with care, he picked up and searched them and called,
Are you there?
but clover by clover by clover he found that the one that he sought for was just not around. And by noon, poor old Horton, more dead than alive, had picked, searched, and piled up 9,005. Then on through the afternoon, hour after hour, till he found them at last on the 3 millionth flower.
My friends!
Cried the elephant.
Tell me, do tell. Are you safe? Are you sound? Are you whole? Are you well?
From down at the speck came the voice of the mayor. We've really had trouble, much more than our share. When that black-bottomed birdie let go, we dropped. We let it so hard that our clocks have all stopped. Our teapots have broken, our rocking chair smashed, and our bicycle tires all blew up when we crashed. So Horton, please, pleaded the voice of the mayor's, will you stick by us who's while we're making repairs?
Of course.
Horton answered.
Of course I will stick. I'll stick by you small folks through thin and through thick.
Humped the voice.
For almost 2 days now, you've run wild, and instead of chatting with persons you've never existed, such carry-ons in your peaceable jungle. We've had quite enough of your carrying on.
Bellowing
Bellowing the bugle. And I'm here to stay.
Snapped the big kangaroo.
That's your silly nonsense game. It's all through.
And the young kangaroo in her pouch said, me too.
They help the Wickersham brothers and dozens of Wickersham uncles and Wickersham cousins. You're going to be roped and you're going to be cased. And for your dust bag, that's shall boil in a hot steaming kettle of
Bezel nut oil.
Boil it.
Gasped Horton.
Oh, you can't do that. It's all full of persons. They'll prove it to you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Horton called.
Mr. Mayor. You've got to prove now that you really are there. So call a big meeting. Get everyone out. Make every who holler. Make every who shout. Make every who scream. If you don't, every who is going to end up in bezelnut stew.
And down in the dust like the scared little mayor quickly called a big meeting in the Whoville Town Square. His people cried loudly. They cried out in fear. We are here. We are here. We are here. We are here. The elephant smiled.
That was clear as the bell. You kangaroos surely heard that very well.
All I heard
Snapped the big kangaroo.
was the breeze and the faint sound of wind through the far distant trees. I heard no small voices, and you didn't either.
And the young kangaroo in her pouch said, me neither.
Grab him
They shouted.
and then cage the big dog. Lasso his stomach with 10 miles of rope. Tie the knots tight so they'll never shake loose. Then dunk the dumb speck in that hazelnut juice.
Horton fought back with great vigor and vim, but the Wickersham gang was too many for him. They beat him, they mauled him, they started to haul him into his cage, but he managed to call to the mayor.
Don't give up. I believe in you. A person is person, no matter
How small?
how small. And your very small person will not have to die if you make yourselves heard. So come on now and try.
The mayor grabbed a tom-tom and he started to smack it, and all over Whoville they whooped up a racket. They rattled tin kettles, they beat on brass pans, on garbage pail tops and old cranberry cans. They blew on bazookas and blasted great toots on clarinets, oombas and poombas and flutes. Great gusts of loud racket rang high through the air that rattled and shook the whole sky, but the mayor called up through the howling mad hullabaloo, "Hey Horton, how's this? Is our sound coming through?" And Horton called back,
I can hear you just fine, but the kangaroo's ears aren't as strong quite as mine. They don't hear a thing. Are you sure all your boys are doing their best? Are they all making noise? Are you sure every who down in Whoville is working? Quick, look through your town. Is there anyone shirking?
Through the town rushed the mayor, from the east to the west, that everyone seemed to be doing his best. Everyone seemed to be yapping or yipping. Everyone seemed to be beeping or bipping. But it wasn't enough. All this ruckus and roar. He had to find someone to help him make more. He raced through each building. He searched floor to floor. And just as he felt he was getting nowhere and almost about to give up in despair, he suddenly burst through a door. That mayor discovered one shirker quite hidden away in the Fairfax Apartments. Apartment 12J, a very small shirker named Jojo was standing and bouncing a yo-yo, not making a sound, not a yip, not a chirp. And the mayor rushed inside and he grabbed the young twerp and he climbed with the lad up the Eiffelberg Tower. This, cried the mayor, is your town's darkest hour. The time for all who have blood that is red to come to the aid of their country, he said. We've got to make noises in greater amounts, so open your mouth, lad, for every voice counts. Thus he spoke as he climbed. When they got to the top, the lad cleared his throat and he shouted out, Yop! And that yop, the one is a small yop, put it over. Finally, at last, from that speck on the clover, their voices were heard. They rang out clear and clean, and the elephant smiled.
Do you see what I mean? They prove they are persons, no matter how small, and their whole world was saved by the smallest of all.
How to? Yes, how to?
Said the big kangaroo.
And from now on, you know what I'm going to do. And from now on, I'm going to protect them with you.
And the young kangaroo in her pouch said, Me too, from sun in the summer, from rain when it's fallish. I'm going to protect them, no matter how smallish. Now for the oogie boogie song.
You're joking. I can't believe you're so small. You who's down there in Whoville. You gotta yap out tall. 'Cause I'm your oogie boogie. And you ain't going nowhere.